Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on a classic 1953 wooden Monk cruiser in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup, Geordie. But not this one. This month, I'll be cruising aboard Lady Zephyrus up into Desolation Sound and beyond. And if that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. Cheers. Alright, so the real fun begins. We're blocked up, and as usual I've had them block it up good and high. And what I've been doing, I've been going around and putting tape on any place where I can see there's a leak. One nice thing about this paint is that it shows up the leaks very, very well. Now, I'm not surprised there's a few leaks at the garboard because, well, as we know, the garboard seams are a real problem on these boats. Had a quick look at the garboard plank and I don't think it has any major issues. I'm not going to stress about it, but I'm going to pull the painting out of here, which is $2.91, and re-caulk through some of these sections with new cotton, possibly oakum if it's required. I didn't use oakum last year when I hauled out this boat before, and there may be seams that really need it, and now that I have access to oakum, again, thank you, Scott, it may be that these need a little more material in them than cotton is able to do. Not worried at all. The $2.91 is held up just absolutely fantastic. Hasn't split or cracked anywhere. I mean, of course, where it's leaking, remember, painting is not intended to be waterproof. It's only intended to protect the caulking, the cotton or oakum that's beyond it. And it's done a perfect job of that. However, the cotton and or oakum that's behind here, no oakum, is failing in 2 or 3 spots, maybe 4 on the whole boat. I'm not even sure if some of these may not actually be leaks. I just want to mark them while they're still wet before they dry out completely, and then I'll be able to have a better idea of what's going on. Otherwise, the bottom of the boat is in awesome shape. Really, really pleased. All the butt blocks, which I dealt with last time, all holding together very nicely. There's absolutely no seams, in other words, no splits at the butts anywhere, so they're all holding really, really nicely. Actually, the bottom of this boat's in great shape. Look at the worm shoe. It's like it's brand new compared to Geordie's, which definitely needs replacing. Anyway, I'll get to work. So here I want to get the painting off while there's still lots of water in the bilge, because what happens is, you can see where my mark was here, it was leaking, but that's only where it was leaking through the painting. Leaking through the cotton seems to be more through here where I didn't have a mark. For instance, this, which was the largest leak, may only be where water was migrating along above the $2.91 and then pouring out there. Anyway, I'll find out in a minute or so. One nice thing about this particular haul out and working up in the garboard, almost clean. The previous haul outs on both of our boats, except for the last one with Geordie, so much oil in the bilge for so long, it's just miserable to work down here. This is actually quite nice and tidy. I love $2.91 as a paying. It's just wonderful. It's easy to put in, it's relatively easy to take out. Hey Max, how are you, buddy? Okay, so with about an hour's time with all the painting removed, it's pretty clear to see where the leaks are. I think all this painting is removed and no new water has really come down. It's held a little water, but no major leaks there, that's for sure. Whereas if we go around the other side, we can see that I've removed the painting in several places and it is still absolutely gushing out this 3-foot section, and that tells me that I have a substantial leak there, because this boat has been pumping a little more often than we'd like. So I'll re-caulk it through there. Honestly, I'll re-caulk it everywhere I've moved any painting anyway, just to tighten it up and make sure it's good, and sort out a few things. One major blunder in the last haul out: new plastic strainer over the new plastic raw water intake, and it didn't get any bottom paint. It was absolutely encrusted, although happily the slots for the water were okay. So I don't know how I missed that. It probably was because I put it on at the very last second, having almost forgot it. Other than that, the bottom is in fantastic shape. I'm really, really pleased. Certainly the paint is amazing. I'm going to tidy it up a little right at the waterline where there's been some issues and some damage from straps, because the paint was a bit wet when it first went on last year. So on the whole, we're pretty good. I've cleaned out, I think, 8 bleeders, so that's not bad, and none of them are old bleeders that have failed, so these are new bleeders starting up. Some of you might remember the last time Zephyrus was hauled out, we removed her splash rails, which is why it's sort of kind of a mess through here. Removed them to tidy up and fit some bleeders underneath, which happily none of them have come back, but we never got a chance to put them back on because we ran out of time. So we'll put the splash rails back on this trip. We'll tidy up the swim grid a little bit. I'm going to remove this extra piece which was broken and in bad shape, and I'm going to attach a nice big piece of manila rope, which will be a fender for the dinghy, so that'll work out really well. Clean the prop, a few other little things, and we'll be splashed again on Tuesday, I think, which is actually probably more time than we need, but on the whole, it's always nice to have a little extra time in the yard, right? Okay, let me get to work. Can you believe it's another heat wave this week? Woo. Anyway, so I've re-caulked all the seams that were of interest. Where it was gushing out here now, you can see it is bone dry. Nothing is coming out any of those places. So the caulking is holding. The bilge is still full of water. So when it dries up on the edge tomorrow, I'll repay that with more good old 291, and that will be in good shape. Cleaned up the shaft and the prop. This prop has had some work done on it in the past. It has some sort of globs of bronze on the hub, and there is a little bit of pitting on the blades, but it's still an absolutely fine prop. The prop expert here has had a look at it and thinks it's just fine. Again, this side, nary a drop coming out after I've re-caulked, and what you can see is just bits of the old 291 paying hanging down. Cleaned up and dug out a few excuse me, bleeders, and I'll look at them tomorrow. So all in all, a pretty good day considering it was haul day and we didn't really get to the boat until early this afternoon. Time for a shower and off to the pub. And good morning. Well, we're well on our way with standard haul-out type stuff. For instance, dealing with the bleeders. They've all had CPES in them and they're soaking in nicely. The tape again is to hold lots in there, act like a dam to keep it in there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is choose a location for the depth sounder. Now, the depth sounder I bought, which is an Airmar, I forget the model, I'm sure I'm going to give you all kinds of indication on it, has a 22-degree allowable view angle. In other words, it doesn't have to sit on a plinth or a fairing block to make sure it's pointing straight down. It's going to sit probably about here somewhere, and as long as the dead rise is less than 22 degrees, it'll work fine. On my boat, I put it in this plank about here, and the dead rise was 1920, and it works perfectly. The other thing you have to do is make sure it's not so close to the keel that it's within its view and you get a false bounce off of that. Although it says that in the instructions, but I'm pretty sure it filters out anything 6 inches away. So let's calculate the dead rise. And in the ever-expanding world of there's an app for that, there is, at least on an iPhone, there is a built-in level telling me that the garboard plank is very close to 16 degrees from the horizontal, meaning it's well within the scope of 22 degrees. Now, if I imagine a perpendicular line from here about there, will that be 22 degrees from the keel? So if I crank this up to 22 degrees from about that point, I basically, if I put my head into the view, comfortably miss the keel. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Again, I've chosen the garboard plank because I can't get into this plank. because the engine beds are right on top of that, and beyond here it gets quite complicated, whereas this is quite a nice location, and the garboard plank is wide enough I can come as far out as possible, not getting too close to the joint. Speaking of garboard planks, both inside and out, I've given the garboard planks on this boat a really good look over the last 2 days, and they're in great shape. They don't seem to suffer from any of that toxic whatever was going on with MV Geordie. Now, this boat also had a gas engine when it was new, and I'm sure it leaked, as all engines do. So I'm wondering if maybe it wasn't the gas, but the concrete, as many of you have suggested, because this boat has no concrete in it, and there's only damage in MV Geordie's garboard where the concrete was. As you get further aft, the planks are perfect. So it's beginning to think more likely it's the concrete that somehow drew anyway, bad. Time to drill a hole. Here we are in Zephyrus's bilge, the beautiful old Perkins 4236, and you can see down there's the garboard, keel garboard. I'm going to opt for the port side, even though that's equally accessible. It is close behind the main raw water pickup, and I don't want disturbance in the water around that sensor. So it's going to go port side right there, very easy access and easy to get to open and clean it. So first things first is to measure for the support block that I'm going to put in for it, but I'm going to have to put you down to do that because I need 2 hands. Yeah. All right, so I've made up a block and temporarily affixed it so it's aligned, and pre-drilled the hole through the block, which will make it a lot easier to carry on through drilling. Let's drill a hole in the bottom of the boat. Yeesh. Well, good morning. Busy today. We've been filling the bleeders, trying to get ahead of everything that has to dry, and the same thing on a short haul out, making sure your epoxy can cure and your paint can cure, etc. So that's what we're struggling with today. We're also replacing these splash rails. At last year's haul out, we removed the splash rails here because there was some trouble underneath it which I had to repair, and some problems around the swim grid, which you saw me take some of that old trim off of there. I'm going to replace that with some nice big rope. So I'm just having to trim the swim grid so this can fare into this properly. It'd be nice to have that back on. I'm not sure we're going to be able to finish these bright. They are gumwood, which of course you wouldn't really varnish. So they'll probably end up painted, which is what they were before anyway, so no big loss there. Okay, let's get going with this. Well folks, this one is really wobbly because it's a combination of a few splices, and we didn't show you doing the easy one. Okay. Oh, get over. Excellent. Splash rail. Not quite as satisfying as some tape pulling, but you know, to a certain degree. We've had to do a couple of little patch repairs to the boot stripe. And now we'll do a couple of patch repairs to the top sides. Yeah, that was nice. Okay, so the various seams that I reefed out and re-caulked on the bottom have been drying for a couple of days, and they're pretty dry. So I'm going to start painting them now with my Sikaflex 291. But I'm just going to do a little additional heat drying just to make sure the joints are as dry as possible so the Sikaflex can do its job. And on we go. Now to just keep my hair out of this one. All right, let those set up a little bit of sanding to keep flappy edges from happening, and we're just about done here. And a quick little touch up at the waterline for bottom paint, which is where most of it seems to wear off. Although I'm super impressed with this paint. This is, I forget what. And another coat just at the tape, because we don't have a lot more paint and I'm waiting for some to come in. So if I can just get 2 coats on and then pull this tape. I'm a little anxious about having this tape on here because the green isn't even 48 hours dry. So there's always a chance it'll pull some green off, but I think we're going to be okay. And then of course the obligatory tape pull, which I am very pleased to say seems to be coming off without causing too much trouble with the green. Very nice. It was only on there for about an hour or so. For those of you who are not familiar with MV Zephyrus has a side exhaust. This is the exhaust port. Very satisfying. All right, retape the top side for painting the top sides. Well, how about that? We're ready to roll. As I said, really quick haul out. Shaving a haircut, some people around here call it. You'll notice some very white pasty stuff on the propeller and shaft. We've been given some advice. It's actually a baby cream. It's half zinc and half lanolin. It's an experiment. Sounds very promising. Got the splash rails back on. Oh, I'm so pleased with this. I didn't get to show you putting this on, but the rope fender on the swim grid turned out really, really nice, and that'll make it a lot easier on the dinghy. New depth sounder, fix some bleeders. Anyway, you know what we did. Launching in half an hour. Lady Zephyrus is actually in a 2-hour Zoom meeting, which she will do through the entire process. This mobile lifestyle, it works. Okay. I think I kept promising to tell you which products I put on the boat. Okay, starting at the bottom, this is Interlux Micron CSC. It's a hard bottom paint, and I really like it. As I was raving when we hauled the boat, after a year of hardly any use, it simply had a little scum which came off very, very cleanly. And absolutely nothing was washed off, so no loss of material at all. This and this are both Petit Easy Epoxy, which is kind of a misnomer because it's actually a one-pack urethane. Perhaps I'm missing the point of their clever marketing. Anyway, and the primer we used underneath here is Petit's Easy Prime. Thick, awesome, good stuff. Okay. And here we go. They are constantly juggling travel lifts in here. This little yard has 3 travel lifts. Well, I didn't get to film too much of that because I was single-handing. Lady Zephyrus actually conducted a Zoom meeting through the entire process, which is pretty cool. Anyway, managed to get in down on the dock, and went very smoothly. The pumps have not started yet, so that's a very good sign. And we're just watering up, fill both tanks, and we're off to Maple Bay to meet up with good old Scott, where we'll spend a couple of days doing some office type work, including editing this video that you're now watching. Well, hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week. Here, back returning to beautiful Princess Cove on Wallis Island, where we were a couple of weeks ago. And we're back aboard MV Zephyrus in this fabulous spot on our way north. Let's get straight to the beer. Back to Red Arrow and their Midnight Umber Ale. Just grabbed this in a liquor store in Maple Bay this morning, and it looks a little dangerous. I think it's a dark, many flavors, interesting. Anyway, we'll see what it is. I certainly am going to enjoy it regardless of what it is. Well, what a splendid day it's been. It's been so satisfying to have the boat in and out of Haulout in 4 days, 5 days, so quickly. You got to watch that, and it went so smoothly, and a couple of days in Maple Bay, which you'll see in the next episode, and now we're heading north. Cheers. Midnight Umber Ale from Red Arrow. That's a busy beer. Whoa, there's a lot going on there. None of which really is fantastic, but I'm gonna drink it because when you're in a cove far away from civilization, you don't pour beer over the side. I don't think. Anyway, let's get right on with things. That is really weird. Last week's winner of the Travels with Geordie t-shirt was Robert Caston. Robert Caston. However you pronounce your name, I think you know who you are. Get a hold of me, and we'll make sure you get your Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Congratulations, Robert. And I'd like to congratulate and thank ever so much a new Patreon that came on last week, Mike Fawcett. Thank you ever so much, Mike. Cheers, and glad to have you aboard. And also on PayPal, James Glass, a returning supporter. Thanks ever so much, James. Cheers. Okay, well, I won't keep you too long because this is such a lovely evening. We're going to go for a walk. We got to jump right to the word of the week. And the word of the week this week, if you'd like to win a Travels Geordie t-shirt, simply use the word satisfying in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random over the next week or so worth of comments. And if I pick you, you'll have won a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Satisfying because this holiday was so satisfying, and frankly, this life is so satisfying. Cheers. See you next week.